I believe that longevity is increasing your lifespan, your health span to parallel with your lifespan, and having vitality within that health span. I want to be able to go to the gym at 90 and exercise and lift some weights, if you will. Let's look at some of the hallmarks of aging. Number one, inflammation. Time Magazine 2004 talked about the secret killer. It was inflammation. Nothing's changed in the next 20 years. Again, I want to manage and modulate inflammation. Care for managing chronic inflammation. Again, this was adapted. I've added a few things from Dr. Bland at last year's IHS. Low glycemic index diet. Carbohydrates can be your nemesis. You want to reduce your saturated fats, but you want no trans fats. You want to increase omega-9s and omega-3s, fruits and vegetables. You want your prebiotics in your foods if you can get them. Supplement, of course, green and black tea polyphenols, an assortment, a full array of vitamins and minerals. For me, pro-resolving mediators, here's the takeaway on them as a supplement. Pro-resolving mediators allow for the resolution of inflammation. Omega-3s should convert to pro-resolving mediators. Pro-resolving mediators usually are needed as a supplement because those omega-3s do not convert well. Again, they allow for the homeostasis between the initiation and the resolution of inflammation. And everybody should want to remove their food sensitivities. The reason is food sensitivities are an issue because from the time to ingestion, if you're sensitive to a food, it takes 72 hours to have symptomology. So I believe they're one of the biggest reasons for hidden chronic inflammation. Mitochondria dysfunction. Dysfunctional mitochondria leads to oxidative stress, decreased ATP, altered mitochondrial biogenesis, calcium imbalance, and ultimately leading to apoptosis and cell death. When you look at the overall mitochondria spectrum, if you will, if it's functional, it's producing efficient ATP. It's allowing for growth and thermogenesis. As it starts to become dysfunctional, calcium transport is decreased, reactive oxygen species is produced, ultimately becoming dysfunctional, leading to inflammation and once again, apoptosis and cell death. So they checked the longevity of centenarians, and what they found was that their gut microbiome had more bacteroidetes. It was more like a youthful person than someone that was aged, if you will. So again, the key to aging is going to be a healthy gut and a healthy gut microbiome. And this really speaks volumes to the same thing. You want a healthy gut microbiome because you want diversity and richness. You do not want dysbiosis. Dysbiosis, unleveling of good and bad bacteria. You need about 85.1% good bacteria not to have gut dysbiosis. I'm giving a presentation, actually inadvertently put it up earlier. Happy we had a couple of moments. Gut health, believe it or not, leads to muscle mass. Remember, muscle mass is the currency of longevity. The gut microbiota plays a distinctive role in regulating several muscle metabolic pathways. The more diversity you have in your gut, the better chance you have of increasing muscle mass. So for those people who come in 50, 55, 60 men and women who are starting to show some sarcopenia, if you will, maybe other than resistant exercise, we should all start testing their gut and start treating their gut. And the microbiome, again, has a direct correlation to the mitochondria. Mitochondria comes from the gut. There's an interplay and there's a bidirectionality. Let's talk about the fascia. I think it's very unique that we talk about fascia, but the effect of fascia, again, it's the saran wrap of the body. I use that analogy of chicken skin versus chicken meat. Interesting. Fascia is an extracellular matrix. Therefore, the fascial system is the largest system in the body and is the only system that touches every other system. Injured fascia communicates throughout the body. If you have acute and chronic pain, you can have prolonged fascial contraction, which ultimately can lead to musculoskeletal pain. Fascia, to me, shows the body's not just all connected. It shows that the body's interconnected because fascia is the saran wrap of that body. If there's a little damage in that fascia, you will see that there'll be failing musculoskeletal health. And that's something that I probably, quite frankly, if I had to redo those hallmarks of aging, I think I would put the central nervous system in musculoskeletal health. I do believe it's covered with fascial injuries, But I think the central nervous system, I know I have a chiropractic background, should be there because the immune system and the central nervous system are two systems that are on 365 24/7. So let's dig into some clinical gems on fascia. It's living matrix. It's a full body wetsuit. It's connective tissue. It is a sheath in the body. It's below the skin and above the muscle. Lymph nodes live in the fascia as well as nerves. It's a sensory, communicating, afferent organism, has meridians. Believe it or not, fascia accounts for 20% of our body's mass. I think the huge takeaway, everybody gives me a wow on this one. Connective tissue like fascia is 1,000 times faster than nerve impulses. I believe the key to longevity is having a robust immune system, because I think that you're probably only as young as your immune system. You could be 60 years old, and if you get this awful flu, COVID taught us that, you age dramatically. So you're only as young as your immune system. Tufts University, Boston University School of Medicine actually said that immunity is the key to longevity. Those who lived to 100 years old not only had good gut health and a very unique biodiversity, they had a very functioning type of immune system, one that produced immune resilience. Immune resilience is a groundbreaking concept. The term represents the ability to withstand and bounce from infections and inflammatory stressors. They found out that immune resilience was not solely age dependent, but without question can affect lifespan and health outcomes. So you just don't want to support your immune system. You want to get immune rejuvenation. You want to rebuild your immune system. You want it resilient. You want it balanced, and then you want to support it. So one of the interesting concepts that occurs as we age is senescent cells. And senescent cells accumulate with advanced or at least normal aging. They impede organ function. They create chronic inflammation. They shorten healthy lifespan. Removing these senescent cells confers with healthy longevity. So those senescent cells are also synonymously called zombie cells. Inflammaging. It's a term I heard about 10 or 15 years ago, went away, is now came back. The concept of inflammation is causing internal aging, stimulating inflammation via NF-kappa B, having an imbalance between your innate and your adaptive immune system, getting an excessive release of inflammatory cytokines, leading you down impaired autophagy, mitochondria dysfunction, cell senescence, and microbiotic dysbiosis. Aging muscle poses an issue. Aging muscle actually becomes extremely inflammatory. Good, strong, vibrant muscle is very salubrious. We want to avoid sarcopenia. Now, we want to avoid sarcopenia because the average American loses about 1 to 2% of muscle each year after age 40. You may lose up to 25% of your muscle mass by 65. Less muscle mass leads to an inability to efficiently dispose of glucose. So one of the biggest contributors, other than our diet in America, is that we're going through sarcopenia and we're losing muscle mass. And that loss of muscle mass does not enable us to be able to regulate our glucose intake. The microbiome, key element is to be able to have a microbiome that can modulate. Pre and probiotics aid in muscle recovery and growth. Those pre and probiotics allow for the production of a postbiotic called the short-chain fatty acid. The gold middle winner there is butyrate, that has a lot of health-promoting aspects, and having a good, strong microbiome will impact muscle fatigue and recovery. As I said before, this was attributed to Dr. Gabriella Lyons. Muscle mass is the organ of longevity. Muscle mass is the currency of longevity. But I believe that turning switches on or turning on and off certain switches of aging will really help with longevity, healthspan, and vitality. One of the switches that you want to turn on is the AMPK pathway, which is an activated protein kinase. It regulates the amount of energy. It's a nutrient and energy sensor. It maintains energy homeostasis. To stimulate AMPK, the supplements are alpha-lipoic acid and berberine, vastly more health promoting, much more effective than, let's say, Ozempic. Omega-3 fatty acids also stimulate AMPK, resveratrol. True intermittent fasting, if you want, Adrienne can give you a link I did a talk on intermittent fasting, and in that talk, I also specialized, which we'll get into in a few moments, why women have to intermittent fast different than men. High intense exercise and caffeine and coffee always going to turn on the right health switch. Sirtuins, you want to turn them on because when you do, they protect the cells from damage. They enable cells to repair. They reduce inflammation. They boost memory, and they work with impaired mitochondria health. They're stimulated by NAD+, green tea, turmeric, resveratrol, quercetin, exercise, intermittent fasting, of course, extra virgin olive oil, and once again, my good old organic coffee. The one that you want to balance and dim that you necessarily don't want to turn on because mTOR is a signal for growth rather than survival. You don't want things to grow too much. So it's a central processing unit that makes all complex decisions relating to cellular growth. Again, knock it down, balance it, and dim it a little bit. The ultimate switch on and switch off is you want to turn on sirtuins and AMPK, and you really want to dim the mTOR pathway. So I alluded to fasting. Pericles once said that fasting is the greatest remedy, the physician within. Here are some benefits to intermittent fasting. Now, I use the term TRE. Let's take a moment. Intermittent fasting truly means fasting for a day. If I were to take a day off and not eat, that's an intermittent fast. If I were not to eat for 16 hours and eat for 8 hours in a day, that would be time restrictive eating. There is a difference in the vernacular. However, everybody calls it intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting, if you will, induces autophagy. Autophagy, the concept of autophagy, which was discovered in 2016, won a Nobel Prize. Autophagy is the breaking down of old cells using the debris to make new cells. It's a body-owned cleansing process of getting rid of cellular debris. Our body's a fantastic unit. As long as we stimulate it in the right way, we have tremendous ability to cause healing and promote healing within ourselves. Intermittent fasting also promotes weight loss, increases insulin sensitivity, promotes longevity, improves cognition, and actually improves circadian rhythm, which ultimately will lead to an improvement in gut health. Circadian rhythm, the ability of us to know when to sleep and wake. We never had this problem 100, 200, 300 years ago before the light bulb, because when it got light, we woke up. When it got dark, we went to sleep. So fasting, interestingly enough, will reduce inflammation and improve chronic inflammatory diseases. Mount Sinai researchers in 2019 found out that it does not affect fasting acute inflammatory status. It just doesn't allow the chronic to turn on. So we have our own ability to turn on and turn off our switches. We've just gone away and we've basically gone haywire with all our switches. Every time I look at somebody's health, I look at the switch box in my garage. I am just awful. So when I touch things, everything goes awry. I blow out balusters. I do all these things. My wife, who's much more skilled at that, is able to ascertain the right switch on and the right switch off. And of course, lights come on, the heat comes on, etc. So everything is harmonious. So brief overview of what we discussed before, fasting impacting women and men. Men, guys, I'm one of you, obviously. Whatever you want to do in your intermittent fasting, 14 to 16-hour fasts. I don't like the one meal a day fast. Go for it. Ladies in menstruating age bracket, you've got to intermittent fast differently. Now, I wish I could see everybody's face because when I lecture and I do that, the girls usually say, you got it, you're right. And I didn't understand or wonder why. Men are based on testosterone. Women are based on estrogen and progesterone. That said, women are much more sensitive to intermittent fasting because of their hormones. So essentially, if you're a woman from 12 to 50, I recommend intermittent fast for the first 3 weeks, 14 to 16 hours in a fast. However, in that last week, when progesterone dramatically increases and you're very susceptible to stressors, intermittent fasting provides hormesis to the body. That's a stressor. I would recommend going down to 12 hours. So 14 to 16 for the first 21 days in a classic cycle. And in the last 7 days, 12 hours. Women who have adapted that time frame to fast have done beautifully with intermittent fasting. If you're postmenopausal, you don't have to worry about anything. And if you're perimenopausal, it's still going to be a little funky. That's the only circle area in the proverbial 5-year period. And if you have PCOS, 100% fast. Got good results with fasting in women who have PCOS. So who shouldn't fast? Maybe athletes, maybe some people who are active, maybe women under 18% body fat, type 1 diabetes, those with sleep disorders, amenorrhea, thyroid, those being treated for infertility, always pregnant or breastfeeding is out. Unfortunately, history of current eating disorders and anybody who has a high cortisol stress level may want to avoid some intermittent fasting, may not be able to take any more body stressors. How do you break the fast? Real simple. Let me give you a couple of very easy steps on how to break a fast. Number one, do not have any food in the first hour when you wake up. Only drink water. You can break it fast an hour or two, and that's when you can have your black coffee. Don't drink black coffee first thing in the morning. Black coffee sometimes allows for an increase in cortisol and some protein synthesis. At the back end of the day, don't eat within 3 hours of when you go to sleep. You do all those things, you're going to be able to you'll be breaking a fast in a healthy manner. So let's take a look. We're more than halfway through. Let's take a look to the future, if you will. I like to look at functional medicine. I want to look for what we call root cause resolution. If you're going to look at the tree, metaphorically, and not at the roots and the soil, you're not looking at functional medicine. It's getting inside the body. It's getting to the root cause. So it's not looking at symptoms per se. It's getting to the systems and allowing those systems to isolate the idea of what is the root cause. Now, one of the greatest ways to get to the root cause is to use the cornucopia of lab tests that Rupa has to your availability, because that actually is objective. It allows you to look inside, and once again, it allows you to test and not guess. But the biggest concept that I adhere to in functional medicine, and especially why I use lab tests, is what we call the N of 1. If Adrian is my patient, I'm not going to treat Adrian like 10 other males. I'm going to use those data points to isolate, to characterize, and personalize and individualize for his outcome or his best clinical health outcome. I'm a big proponent of laser. I use laser all the time. If anybody, again, has any questions, reach out to me. I'm happy to help you. I believe that low-level laser, non-thermal laser, electromagnetic transfer of energy will help the mitochondria. It was the modality of the proverbial 21st century to help for longevity. So people are all talking about hot and cold and why. Again, it's the concept of hormesis. We keep coming back to that. Interestingly enough, with the hormesis, you want to remove when you go into a sauna. I believe the sauna should be 100 to 146 degrees, 140 to 160 degrees. And that will enable you to produce heat shock proteins. Heat shock proteins are able to prevent against cardiovascular disease and neurodegenerative disease. And jump in some water or take a super cold shower of 50 to 59 degrees. Those cold shock proteins are released from the liver. They're anti-inflammatory. They support wound healing. They increase muscle repair, increase protein synthesis, and increase free radical oxygenation. People ask me all the time for leading edge nutrients for longevity, where here are some of the things that you're going to see now and in the future. Fisetin, green tea. Spermidine, lutein. 2-HOBA. 2-HOBA is very potent for immune health. PEA is like a pro-resolving mediator. And the gold medal winner, without question, is BPC 157. BPC 157 is referred to as the Wolverine supplement. And the reason it's because it's like the Marvel comic book character who has amazing healing capacities. Again, if you want a little more info on BPC 157, it helps speed up tissue healing and recovery. It helps in the regulation of blood pressure. It comes from your gastric juice. We've known this since 1995. It's a peptide. It's just 15 amino acids versus 40, which would be a protein. So to wrap up my longevity hacks, number one, food is medicine. Let medicine be your food. Everything starts with good food. Dramatically reduce your sugar, your starch, your ultra-processed food intake. Exercise. You want to exercise. You always want to incorporate resistance training. Sleep. I think sleep is a hack. I believe that sleep matters. I think that sleep is the missing link to overall functional medicine, something that hopefully we'll discuss in the future. Health detectables. I own no stock in Aura. I think it's a great health detectable. Continuous glucose monitor is the rage. What a great choice. Meditate. First thing I do when I get up in the morning after drinking some water is try and meditate, try and calm this type AAA New York personality. Intermittent fasting. It's not for everybody, but those who can do it, it's a great lifestyle hack. Low level laser, the modality of the 21st century. Get involved in a purpose, mission, and community. It's funny when I see, it's not funny, but it's exhilarating actually when I see Group of Health at all these IHS, IFM, A4M, et cetera, et cetera. They're excited. Here's youth. They're ready to take the world on. And that purpose, that mission, that community, it's contagious. Hormesis, hot and cold exposure. We covered that. The supplements, the big one is BPC 157. That's the takeaway. And for me, I'm looking to keep an intact gut barrier and remove food sensitivities.